So last week we had rules of dating with Julio, and it was a fantastic episode. But we were sitting and thinking, we were like, well, now we have to do rules of marriage, rules of relationships. We gotta stick. Always gotta hit everybody. We can't be biased to one side.
This is an equality podcast.
Exactly. We have a married girl and a relationship girl, and only one single girl.
One for all for one.
So we came up with more questions for married and relationships. We're gonna go through those today.
You're going to have to ask them.
I'm going to interview you.
Okay.
I'm going to interview you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're your besties in your ear. Back for another episode of Mean Girl Pod.
Welcome back to another episode of Mean Girl Pod.
Jordyn can't smile because her face is crooked.
My face is fucked up.
She got the Botox.
Yeah, I got Botox in my TMJ or my jaw to help with TMJ and grinding. And the thing about my face is one side accepts Botox faster than the other. And like this has always been the case, like eyebrows, forehead. So right now I have a crooked smile, so I cannot laugh or show too much emotion because I will look like the inverted filter.
Okay, what we're going to do is incentivize everybody to go watch us on YouTube because you should watch it on YouTube. And the way we're going to do that is look at the camera and give them a smile. Yes, do it for the people on YouTube. There was. No, take your hands away. Come on, there, you guys see that? You're welcome.
Don't get work done.
No, that's not the message.
I'm just kidding. It will in a week, it will be balanced out, but that's just my face. It always, one side accepts it sooner than the other.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's not about what's on the outside. It's about what's what?
On the outside.
On the inside.
Yeah.
It's about who you are as a person.
Yeah.
That's the message.
I loved my smile.
Get work done to humble yourself. Yeah. That's why you get work done. This episode, all the episodes are presented by the one and only Pink Whitney. We're recording a little later in the day today.
Yeah.
4 p.m. 5, almost 4:47.
It's our second take of the week.
It is part 2 of Mean Girl Pod. And we should have Pink Whitney shots. I see it. There's a bottle. Because it's almost happy hour and it's Friday Eve. I'm tweeting that, by the way, every Thursday, Friday Eve. It's going to be a reoccurring segment.
I love.
Head to your local bar today and order you and your friends Pink Whitney shots. Would you like to say something?
What's the segment exactly?
Just Friday Eve is the segment. Just that's it. It's not actually
You
a
tweeting
segment.
Friday Eve is a segment? I love that.
It's a segment.
I love it. I love it. Also, if you're on YouTube, I don't know what you can see, but I just cannot get over our spaces. Alex has like half-eaten apple, Laffy Taffy, probably like 2 sips of a Starbucks drink, makeup everywhere, and then I have a water bottle.
You ready for the joke?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It matches your nails.
It does match my nails.
Pink looks great on you for your hands.
Thank you for my hands. Oh, my spray tan hands.
Well, I mean, like, pink nail polish looks great on you.
I have extra dry hands. Did you know that about me?
I do too, actually.
Let me feel. Come here.
Which is weird because you don't wash your hands, so why would you?
You don't wash yours either.
Oh my God. Yeah, so we both do.
We do.
I think it's...
We could let it match.
I don't know why we do. Which is so weird because we don't wash our hands.
I know, so you wouldn't think they would be dry.
Do you have dry hands?
I have actually the sweatiest hands known to man. Like, it's a problem.
Of course, Alanna has like moisturized hands.
No, Alex, like in a
Most
bad
hands.
way.
So if you put your hand on the table, would there be a sweat mark?
I wish.
Correct.
You guys,
Like holding hands with a boy, like job interviews,
What's
like
worse?
meeting someone. What?
what's worse, overly dry hands or sweaty hands?
Sweaty, I promise.
No, dry.
Think about, but Alex,
But you just put on some moisturizer real quick.
No, mine are dry like to the core. Like lotion. I could put lotion on every day for 5 years and I won't make up for this.
Like from within they're dry. Like
yes, to my core, I'm dry.
Yeah, but would you rather touch someone's hand that's maybe a little scratchy or wet? Scratchy.
Really?
My boyfriend in high school, so he was a wrestler,
no,
and
now it's triggered. Like literally, if you say
no.
sweaty hands, like my hands will start sweating.
no, he would put his hand on a table, and it would like like moisture, like the moisture ring would form around it, and like think about that touching you all the time. It was
So,
gross.
Do you think like the
Okay.
combo?
No, sorry, no, sorry. I did not mean like that. Like, no, a
No,
lot of
but
his were like
correct,
wet.
like-
It was like he washed his hands.
But was he a perfect match for you because he like your hand was so dry that it absorbed his moisture?
Wait,
And
here.
he didn't notice.
Let me touch your hand.
Come here.
I don't think so. Oh
my God.
Wait, I never realized that.
Wait, but did you think our hands were dry? Did you honestly?
I've thought your hands were dry before. Yeah.
Mine?
Yeah.
You just thought mine were dry?
I like before I've thought, oh, Alex has dry hands.
I was like, do.
But it's not a bad thing.
It's probably because you
sweating is more
spray tan.
embarrassing than dry.
Spray tan
1000%.
makes your skin drier.
It's been this way
Since you were born?
Yeah. College. It's hereditary.
See, my hands, I don't think like the palm is dry. I think it's just like everything else.
the palm, your palms are, yeah.
Which sucks because you know that your hands are your first to go with age. So if we have dry hands, we're just gonna look older in our hands.
Ooh, you should be putting shit
know
on
that?
your hands now.
No, I wear lotion all the time.
Like even sunscreen probably.
I do.
I do sunscreen my hands because I can't get worse than this. Like, this is the hand of an 80-year-old.
We have hands of 40-year-old women. Not that 40-year-old women are old, but we do.
Yours are 40. Mine are 80. Just say it. It's okay.
Yours are not 80, Alex.
65.
45, maybe.
This is worth it for YouTube to see our hands. Okay. All right. What did, and we're on a tangent. Okay. What did the gangster say to Julius Caesar? Oh, that's funny.
I don't know. I don't even know what I would say. I don't know.
No guesses?
Like no.
You're my Rome boy.
I don't get it.
Yeah, no.
You're my homeboy. Rome.
Oh, Julius Caesar, Rome.
It's a stretch. Okay, there's one more. Hold on. What did the British umpire say to the batter?
The British are coming. I don't
Europe.
know.
This is the worst.
Europe. Wait, that's funny.
You get that one?
Yeah, because like Europe.
Oh my God. Like you're up.
Europe. Like
You're
Europe. I like. Did you only bring that laugh taffy to listen to the jokes?
No, I was going to
Or
eat it, but now I'm here. Well, I ate the apple instead.
Okay, nice.
Okay, nice.
There's two types of girls. I just every time I look over, I just look and I'm like clutter.
Clutter. Do you think I'm messy?
Okay, you're not messy. You're oh, what's the word? Okay, so I think there's like different tiers of dirt. Like not dirty. Dirty is a strong word. You're not messy.
I'm not dirty. I'm messy.
Yeah. Because overall, you're a clean person, but you have like you have things in your life that are a little messy.
Yeah.
Like your
My desk is a pit.
your apartment, your hotel room.
My hotel room for
I just think when we went to Nashville for NASCAR, you're like stepping on the floor, like my slippers like on. I don't know if it was like if it was a sticky boop or if it was like liner. I don't know what I stepped on, but I stepped on something. Yeah.
You stepped on a sticky boot.
Yeah. Ew. Yeah. So yeah, you're not dirty, you're just messy.
Yeah. Okay. How was your weekend?
It was good.
Was it?
I don't want to laugh because I look like a sociopath. It was good. I went to visit my parents in Florida. It was nice.
Yeah. How was the weather? Did you know that's like the top 3 most boring things you can talk about? I don't know what number 2 is, but number 1 is your dreams because they're so real to you, but nobody else saw them and you're just talking like you're just spewing random stuff. And then third thing is the weather.
How was your weekend? How was Daytona and NASCAR?
It was phenomenal. This
Heard,
is what I
heard it was better than your wedding.
It was. And I think I put them in order.
That was the funniest tweet I've ever seen.
NASCAR Daytona was the best day of my life.
Good.
And my wedding day was, and everyone's like, what's the third photo? And I was like, just a photo of myself I liked. I don't know what day it was.
I know. I didn't know if that was like your bachelorette party or a bridal shower or something.
I don't know.
It's cool. It's a cool pic.
I thought it was cool.
It's a sick pic.
I had so much fun at Daytona. And it's like completely miffed me. It's made me question everything.
Oh, yes.
In life,
I was
right?
Like, what's miffed mean?
Like, doesn't that mean like I'm miffed? Like I'm stumped?
I have heard you say that a few times, and still, like, I don't think I've ever heard anyone else say it.
I don't know what that means.
It's like sow your oats. You guys
Yeah, sow your oats. I love that one.
I was gonna say sometimes with you, I just realized you had an Oklahoma vocabulary that I should roll with.
Maybe it means like ticked you off.
Or like
threw you off your
like a puzzle. Like it stumped me. Like I'm
stumped.
Yeah, it
Okay.
stumped me. Like I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking about it a lot because I'm not gonna try to explain to you how much fun it was. Because I'm not gonna have words for that.
Okay.
What I am gonna do is tell you this. I was sitting on top of a bus, like a real life bus. Like a school bus, but it was painted. I'm so sorry. Did you go to Kumon when you were little?
No.
What?
Neither of you went to Kumon, the learning thing? Do you remember, have you seen it? Kumon Learning Center?
No.
The packets? No.
Like Sylvan Learning Center?
It's like
Something
Sylvan, yeah.
Oh, I went to Sylvan as a kid.
Did you have to submit packets?
Probably. I was so challenged in school. My parents put me through all these things.
Me too. When I walked by a Kumon today and like started sweating.
No.
I was like, oh,
Wait, I can't believe you were a Kumon kid.
I was
Sylvan.
I
oh my God, you're a
bad
Sylvan
Kumon
kid? That's kind of like... It's kind of like
I was in special reading when I was in elementary school. I'm dyslexic and no one believes me.
well, you're dyslexic when you want to be. That's a fact. You are. Sometimes you read fine and sometimes your eyesight's fine. And then sometimes when it's convenient, you have dyslexia and you can't see. And I've caught on to that, okay?
That is true. That is Jordyn
facts.
Just yeah. Anyways.
Okay, so I'm sitting on top of this school bus and it's like 7 a.m. And
Wait, what does that have to do with Kumon?
oh, well, the school bus reminded me of that because it was school.
Okay.
I told you guys I'm not good in the afternoons. So then I'm sitting on the school bus in Daytona, drinking my coffee, and I'm up there alone, and I'm looking at the track, and the guy's over the announcements. He's like, welcome to the Daytona 500. And I'm like, you feel like you're in a movie. I mean, this stadium holds 150,000 people.
Is that the biggest one?
No, there's bigger ones.
Okay.
I think the Indy 500, I think, holds more.
That's massive.
It's you can't comprehend it unless you're inside of it. And then even your eyes, it's kind of hard. You can't get it on a sideways photo on 0.5. Like, it's massive.
Wow.
Yeah. But I could see it on top of this bus, and I was drinking my coffee, and I thought to myself, I'm so happy here. And I was like, which is ironic because I live in New York. We have cool jobs. We go to all these cool restaurants. We probably can like do anything we want at our fingertips. And yet people dress cool here. You can go shopping whenever you want. And yet here I am in a trucker hat and like an oversized jacket from a coworker, happy as can be. And it made me question. I was like, well, really, what is your true happiness? And it was like, not what everyone, because to me, what you think you should be doing, right, is like probably having this job or having a corporate job even, probably not even this one, but like a corporate job. And I'm like, that's where you should be at this stage in your life, maybe. But when you're doing something like that and you're the happiest you've ever been, maybe debatably, it makes you question, you're like, well, really, what's it all for?
Yeah. I feel like I personally battle with what I should do versus what I want to do every day.
Yes, and it's like you have to ask yourself, okay, like what is success? And then does that equate to happiness? Mm-hmm. Are they the same thing? Like I think you have to default to questions in this scenario and like start asking yourself. And then when you really pay attention to it, you realize what you probably thought you should be doing. It's like a really good incentive to start trying new things, or to always remember to try new things and pay attention not to what society says you should do, but to what you go try or what you want to do. And then ask yourself, like, how did I feel when I did it?
Yeah, I always envy people who like work on like a lilac farm, like the Stooley clubhouse guy. Like I envied him how he just sat on a tractor all day on a lilac farm, watching Barstool stuff on his phone. And I'm like, that man is probably happier than everyone in this building.
Yeah, and then you realize, you're like, okay, happiness doesn't come from any exterior factor. Like no salary will give it to you. Mm-mm. No follower count will give it to you. No paycheck, no nothing. Like no title, just a feeling. And it's like you have to chase the feeling, because I think that's probably where authenticity comes from. And you have to allow yourself to chase the feeling. Yeah. And say, I will try. Would I have ever done NASCAR? No, because growing up, I somehow associated like the word white trash with it. Mm-hmm. And then you try it and you're like, oh, I just wasn't exposed to this. But now that I'm doing it, okay, question, how do I feel? Okay, I love it.
Yeah, in Think Like a Monk, how Jay Shetty's quoted Jim Carrey. And he was like, Jim Carrey wishes everyone could try being rich and famous for a month because they'll realize that it doesn't bring any sort of happiness. And that quote like slapped me in the face, because I've worked a corporate job where I've made great money. I've worked a job where I've made no money. I've worked this job, and it's like the external factors have never brought me happiness. I've always been happy from specific things within myself.
Yes, that's what it is. And you're like, okay, because on the outside, you're like, we've checked all the boxes, like cool. And we love our job and we love New York.
Yeah.
Like, not for nothing. I don't want to live in Daytona, Florida. I would go absolutely insane. But I'm like, okay, so trying all of these things that we have to try in life and realize that happiness comes from all these other places. And then asking yourself too, does location matter? You know, like where you put yourself, if you put yourself in a certain atmosphere, we always talk about how on here, like proximity is so important, who you're around. Yeah. And it's like, maybe you just fit in other places.
Yeah. Like I always think about that for when I'm considering my future partner. I told you guys this yesterday, but I struggle with the person in my head, I always want like the suit, the finance guy, the CEO, the person who makes a lot of money. But I've always been attracted and gravitate more towards like, I don't really know how to describe them. The past, like I don't know, like
They're like
my friend is like hometown boy.
yes, exactly, like the boy next door.
Yeah,
kinda.
Good old boy.
And I think about Sweet Home Alabama, how you have Patrick Dempsey, and then we still don't know his name.
No
Jake.
idea.
Whoever plays Jake, and she has like Patrick Dempsey's the suit, the rich guy, and then Jake's the hometown boy. And I was telling my friend, I'm like, I think I want the Patrick Dempseys of the world, but the past few guys that I've dated or been attracted to have been the Jakes, the hometown boys. And I'm like, which one do I want? My ego's telling me Patrick Dempsey, but my heart's telling me Jake.
Oh, yes.
And it's like, why? Is it because society tells us that dating the CEO, the suit, the rich guy is going to bring you happiness versus the other guy, which the other guy probably will bring me a lot more happiness.
Yeah, right. Totally. It's the ego.
Yeah.
It's the ego compares you to everyone else, but self-esteem compares you to you type thing.
Yeah.
It's that. And so you're like, all right, so my ego is like, well, what's everyone else doing? Because that's what we watch online and things like that. But then if you default to self-esteem, you're like, what do I want?
Yeah.
And then you're like, I think my heart likes, I don't know. You know what it was? It's the same thing because I guess in this scenario, Jake is the NASCAR. Mm-hmm. And so you're sitting up there and you're asking, your heart is like, what is happening? Like, what do you want?
It mind fucks you.
Yeah, it was, oh my gosh. It's just like,
because you're like, is this temporary? Is this like a forever feeling? Like, you don't know if it's like a fix.
right.
You don't know if it's like your brain subconsciously like playing tricks on you.
Yes. And it all comes from, but you know what? You know, the only way to get there is experiencing things. I feel like is in some form or fashion, stepping outside your comfort zone. So trying new things, dating different types of guys, being like, okay, oh my gosh, as simple as this girl sent me a vest and she was like, try this on. And I was like, I wouldn't wear that because I know it would look terrible on me. But then I was like, fuck it, I'll try it on. And I like loved it. So it's like actually trying on different things and being like, maybe the way I've always thought it should be isn't the way it should be.
Yeah.
And it's just like, once you try that, thinking, you know what it is? I was trying to type this out. From 0 to 18, I never thought about life. From 18 to 25, I thought I had it all figured out. Like I was so headstrong and I was like, I know everything and it should be this way. From 25 to now, every day I start to think, I don't know. I have no idea. And like the less I know, the more I want to find out. And it's been like the most beneficial thing in the world.
Oh yeah. I have gone through multiple life crises.
I'm not sure.
Like multiple, like, you know, everyone's like, you're having a quarter life crisis. I'm like, yeah, I've had at least 5 of those.
Just because of like trying something or expecting something of yourself. And then just being like, well, and if you fumble the ball, but you got to.
Well, and also I feel like our generation isn't okay with being content or settling. Like we want to live our life to the fullest. Mm-hmm. So if we're settling or feeling like that flat line for too long, I feel like we start to panic and we're like, we got to do something like right now.
Yeah. Stagnant's the enemy.
Yeah,
for sure. Because I think we saw
our parents be miserable.
I think we saw our parents do that perhaps. Yeah. And we will overcorrect on this. And then our kids will probably play it more safe, I'm sure.
Well,
like,
yeah.
It'll, they say it skips a generation and not for nothing, I think.
Well, that's why I think the boomer generation had so many issues with millennials because we didn't want to live life. Like, I feel like we were the first generation to fully flip how we live life. Like, Gen Z, it's not that different. They're a little bit more, I just want to be happy. But we were like the first generation to fully be like, we don't want to just work our whole life. We don't want to just work to live. No. Which one is it? Live to work?
Live to work. But, well, that's the question. Do you work to live or live to work?
They live to work.
Oh, we
work to live.
Yes. No, we live to work.
We live
to work.
No. Living to work is like you love to, like, you work so much. Like, that's your life.
Boomers live to work.
We work
so
to
we
be
can
able
live.
to pay to live, like, to just do whatever we want.
Yeah, that is our generation, but I don't think that's us three.
Well, no, I've told Jordyn, and we talked about this. Our dream is to open up a coffee shop and sell sandwiches.
I want to move to the ocean.
Like, that is happiness to me.
No, like I was saying, like
Making
boomers,
sandwiches and coffee all day.
Boomers as a whole, like they were always taught like job is the most important thing, taking care of your family, providing stability, like they just live to work. But I think millennials was the first generation to kind of like shake it up a little bit, where they were like, no, I want to like live life.
We established the work-life balance and the work from home. Yeah. So traditionally, right, like if you didn't, remember the old saying, like if you didn't come home and your hands were bleeding, you didn't work hard enough that day?
Yeah.
Like that would be something my grandpa would tell me.
Yeah.
Or
like,
even-
okay.
Like
Fine, if you want to live like that, okay.
Feeling burnout was like,
Yeah.
you got like a slap, like a pat on the back, like good, you're burnt out. That's good.
they would equate hours. That was the problem for me always with like watching it. I would be like, you're taking the amount of time you work, not the level of productivity.
Yes.
And you're calling it hard work, where we were like, watch what we can do in 2 hours, run circles around you guys, and still go travel, reset our brains. Like we did establish that.
Yeah.
I think I struggle with, I think that was the whole contemplation on the bus, though.
Oh no, I
was
know
your
me
contemplation?
as a person.
Can you talk about that more like a macro level? Like, what do you mean? Like, what were you thinking about? Like, oh, do I even want to live in New York kind of thing? Like,
No, I was thinking, I was trying to think long term. Like I've had this really hard problem lately thinking past August. Like I can't get past August. I just think till then. So I was sitting up there and I was like, why are you so happy here? And like, I mean, so happy. And it was like something I had never felt and I was like, are you doing everything right? So when I read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, he talks about like these steps you take to like crack a code. And he was like trying to create Nike out of his basement, you know, and he like's going to China and he's buying the parts, and then he starts the marketing part of it. And it's like every time he takes another step and he gathers like a new piece, he's like, okay, this is all starting to fit together. I think maybe that's what I was feeling. Like I was like, but I was also pondering, if I can learn this big of a lesson here, like what else have I not learned? Like what am I supposed to be doing? Like really, I read all these books about these founders, these people, and it's like they know so much and they've hacked into this whole life thing. And I was like, have you done that yet? But like, have you given yourself the chance to?
Yeah. Finding like true happiness is such an amazing feeling, but really scary feeling because it's so rare. And when you feel it, it like really shakes you up because it makes you like rethink your entire life because you want to keep feeling that, but it's almost impossible to continuously feel.
You can't feel it, right?
Yeah. Like I feel like it shook you.
Totally. The first time we went, it did like something about it. And I was just like, it makes me question something. I'm sure some great therapist could tell me what I was questioning. I don't know.
Yeah.
maybe kind of like where your home base is.
You know, Yellowstone did that to me
You're kind
too.
of all over the place too.
Mm-hmm.
Like your mom's here, but she's not. She's in Oklahoma. Like, where's your home?
Right. And
Kind
like,
of stage. That's maybe why you're enjoying like going to different places.
and I felt the two things that I felt most connected to were like a ranch and then like NASCAR, which you can find that type of vibe in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I find myself at dinners up here with like really posh people and I love it. I mean, that's fine, but I have to try to fit in with them. And when I'm down there, I just fit in with them.
You're Southern.
It brings
Like
out my
you,
true
you
self.
are like, you know,
Yeah. I know. It's
Yeah.
it's different. Like even Midwest, Northeast, like
yeah.
I can imagine how hard it is, honestly, to like fit in here.
It's just, that's the thing of it. It's just truly different.
Like humor is different. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I say something to you and you don't take it as a joke, kind of.
Oh yeah.
Do you know
fully.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah. It's a miss.
yeah.
Sometimes when I walk into a coffee shop, sometimes even.
Especially because we moved at like not the time of our lives. Like we already like grew into a person when we moved here. We didn't
So
move
true.
during like puberty
Right,
or
yeah.
like adolescence. Like we were adults when we moved here, and you can't just like change. You don't change like that drastically. I feel like when you're almost 30, like we will change, but like we were who we were when we moved here.
So we were not at an impressionable age.
Yeah.
And the problem with it was, okay, this was another thing I was pondering up there. I think I lived in Oklahoma so long and lived that life till I was maybe 24. And then getting out of it, even going to Newport in LA, it still wasn't like that. This place will shock you.
Yeah.
New York will shock
New York?
you. Yeah, it's the one, and that's why New York's New York. Like, that's the beauty of it. That's why I love it so much. Because, like, if this place can't shock you, what can? So then you come here and you're on sensory overload, and you're like, who am I? Like, you have to truly ask yourself, because if you don't know who you are here, then, I mean, then who are you? Like, anywhere, right? Because everyone here is mainly a transplant, or they're here for some larger reason. And so, at the same time, I feel like it's equal parts shell of humans, but then, like, depth of humans.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so beautiful about it.
That's probably why I always picked the boy next door, because I grew up in Minnesota, went to school in North
true.
Dakota. It's like comfort. It's home.
Totally. I think it's a good thing we would be crazy if you and I could pick up, move here, and just seamlessly integrate. That's not going to happen.
No, like we are who we are to a certain degree
Mm-hmm.
because we were born and raised in such different parts of the country.
It would be like picking up Alanna and putting her in Oklahoma and being like, have no problems. Just take your hit stride.
I think
like
I
pushing
stuck
people
out like a
over.
sore thumb just walking down the street in Oklahoma.
You would be like you'd be pushing people over. It's like when I went to LA, even like I literally was like, move faster. And I
Right.
was more like harsh
Yes.
and like, it like drove me insane.
It's location. It's such a big part of who we are because of what comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just makes you, it's just like purging things in me, I guess. So all I'm doing is just defaulting to questions. Like, it's that part of my life where I'm like, I don't know it all. I just can ask myself, when were you really happy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was there.
That's such an interesting question. Like to think about, like when was the last time you were genuinely happy?
Yeah, Sunday.
Like, isn't that like,
But right.
Do you think it was you were just having so much fun, or like,
I don't know.
do you think the fun was overshadowing, like, was like, I don't know, like drawing you into this like deeper thing? Or do you think it like unveiled something that you've been like feeling?
both? I think it's a combination. Because it was when I was like, another thing Jay says, you can have all these things around you, but when you're truly still, that's when you can find out who you truly are. And it wasn't until I finally was by myself with the coffee at 7 a.m. sitting up there where I was like, whoa, what's happening? And that's where I like had the revelation.
I just think being genuinely like truly happy is such a rare thing to feel that like it would just like shakes you up like fully.
Mhm.
And I sometimes think it like plays with your mind because then you like assume, like when I was in LA, like all of a sudden I thought I should like move out of New York and move to a coast and start a coffee shop because I was so happy in a moment in LA. But then I was like, wait, Jordyn, like that's not realistic. You're just trying to like relive and mimic that one piece of happiness you felt in your whole 27 years of life.
Right.
So last week we had rules of dating with Julio, and it was a fantastic episode, but we were sitting and thinking, we were like, well, now we have to do rules of marriage, rules of relationships. We always gotta hit everybody. We can't be biased to one
This
side.
is an equality podcast.
Exactly. And we have a married girl and a relationship girl and only one single girl.
One for all for one.
So we came up with more questions for married and relationships. We're going to go through those today.
You're going to have to ask them.
I'm going to interview you. I'm going to interview you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question we have is it okay to hang out with the opposite sex when you're in a committed serious relationship or have an opposite sex best friend once you're in a committed serious relationship?
Okay, so I've sat and thought about all these today. This one you can argue either way. I'm going to go with yes, it is okay. Because I don't want to live in a world where it's not. That was what I thought about. I went back and forth on them. I think you could put 10 people in here. Some will make the argument either way. I think it's a pretty close call. But think about the overwhelming cons of saying to your significant other, I just want you to have guy friends.
Okay, what about, does it matter if they were pre-relationship or during relationship?
I don't think that matters. It might matter in a scenario where you lived in the same city forever and you probably knew the same people. It might be kind of weird to form like a later in life friendship. But think about how often in the way that we just talked about our generation establishing that work-life balance, like you hang out with your coworkers sometimes. Like I do think you form those relationships the more you do, the older you get. Like I think that we have to allow that.
Would it bother you though if Graham all of a sudden had a best girlfriend that he was hanging out with all the time?
So yes. So I'll draw the line there at best. So I think it would be weird if he later in life had anybody that was a girl that was his best friend. Like even if she was his best friend from middle school, like after we got married, you don't have your best friend be the opposite sex anymore. I think that you can have a friend.
Okay.
I'm talking second, borderline third circle group of friend is what I would say is okay. I think if you form a best friend later in life of the opposite sex, that's weird.
Okay, so because the question was have an opposite sex best friend.
No.
Yeah. No. Okay. Good. I'm glad I was like, no.
No, not best. No, there's no best.
You're his best girlfriend.
I am your best friend, and you are my best friend. And if my best friend is a guy, it better be my brother, otherwise it's weird.
Yeah, because like you know how in movies there's always those scenarios where like a guy has that best girlfriend. Well, you know what? In those movies, they usually end up falling in love at the end.
I just watched it on the plane with Ashton Kutcher and Reese Witherspoon. That's it. And it's like they're talking on the phone every day, FaceTiming.
I could never.
And it's like, that's your best friend?
Unless that person maybe was also married and we were friends with that husband.
No.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm thinking of my best couple friends that we went to the Super Bowl with, and if Graham's FaceTiming her, in what world?
Yeah, that's weird.
That is the weirdest world.
Yeah, that's weird. I'm fully on the same page. I mean, you guys know how I feel about guy friends in general, so I'm here for it.
I'm down though for like I am down for a gay best friend.
Yeah,
that's
totally
it doesn't
different.
even like cross my mind. But
The term best is weird.
Best.
I think my closest guy friend is fair to say. Like, of every guy I'm friends with, there's one I'm closest with.
But you don't hang out with them alone.
No!
Right.
No! And I think he might be my cousin.
Of course he is.
We're not sure.
Right. My best guy
related somehow.
Best guy friend is Graham's friend.
Yeah.
It's Garrison. That'd be my best guy friend to this day. Yeah,
like, I would never be like, you and me, let's get dinner. I would be like, you, me, Mike, and your girlfriend, let's get dinner. I would never hang out with him alone at this point, even though we've known each other our entire lives, I think.
I had a best guy friend in Minnesota, but it was one of those friendships where it was me, one of my other best friends, and him, and we always only hung out as a trio. It was never like one-on-one. So if I was hanging out with him, she was always there and vice versa. But that was the only scenario.
It's the only scenario.
And if even like texting was always like a three-way group chat, like three-way FaceTime. It was never just like one-off, like blah, 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 blah. Hey, how are you? You know what I mean?
Right. I do think you can read the room on it too, though.
Yeah.
Like Yes, I'm thinking about a time where Graham went to get coffee with my friend. Totally normal.
Yeah.
That's not weird.
I will say my ex knew that I was going to start dating Mike when we were friends. He knew. He always used to make comments about it.
See, so that's the thing you do know. You do know.
Yeah.
You can read a room.
They know. Everyone knows, you know?
Yes. And you know.
Oh, our intuition
gut is true.
Always right.
Yeah.
And yeah. Okay.
But best friend is not. There's no scenario where it's a best friend of the opposite sex once you're in a committed relationship.
No, I'm glad we can all agree on that.
Doesn't exist.
Can you just imagine like Mike or Graham just like, I'm getting coffee with Stacy today.
This is my and they're sorry, I would ask Graham right now, but he's FaceTiming Stacy, so I can't. What?
Could never.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is another 2-part question. First part. Once we'll do married for this one. Once you're married, are you merging bank accounts or keeping them separate? That's the first part of the question.
Okay. You're merging them in some capacity. That has to be the middle ground on it. I'm pro merge it all.
Mm-hmm.
I understand more now than ever with equal parts working. I think women work just as much as guys these days, which I love. So I'll settle for an 80% middle or 50% merged. Some sort of shared pot. My favorite way to organize it that I've been researching, shared pot here. No matter if he makes $100,000 and you make $10,000, you both put 20% of that in the pot. And that's for grocery. That's what you buy a house out of. Like you pull from that. But I do think if the bank accounts are totally separate, everything is fully separate, I don't know that we're calling that unity. Like me and my best friend have separate bank accounts, but not me and the person that you're married to. There's got to be some sort of overlap, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I think when I get married, I would be so okay merging 100%, especially because like I have a job, I make my own money, and I'm assuming my husband will too. But I also can see myself maybe being like, let's each have maybe like put 10% of our paychecks in a separate, because I do have spending habits that are a little bit ridiculous, where I like to get facials and buy makeup and get my lips done and get Botox, where I would maybe feel guilty if he wasn't a big spender. But other than that, like I kind of want everything to be together.
And you know what I love is an understanding guy, because I think there's never going to be a world where girls don't spend more.
No.
Maybe guys have like a watch thing, but like we're going to make more minute purchases along the way. And nothing makes me happier when Graham's like, I want you to go get that.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And it's like, he said it yesterday, but I did love the I'm down to invest in you just as much as you're down to invest in me type vibe going on. Like, I want to pay for your stuff.
I just think like I'm so old school about it too. Like, I think that's the one thing about marriage. It's like you become more like as a one person.
My old boss taught me, he said this, because when I was getting married, I was like, hey, what do you think about shared bank accounts? And he said, if you sleep in the same bed, you have the same bank account.
Yeah. And
I thought, what a cool analogy to some capacity. I've never understood couples, and I know there are plenty, and I'm not knocking you, but if you go to the grocery store and like you have $100 tab and then you leave and you're like, Venmo me 50.
There are couples out there that will keep like, kind of like tallies, like, oh, you bought dinner tonight, so then I'll buy dinner tomorrow. It's like, what? Why are we keeping a score? You're together.
Or like you have rings on, right? So you're fully married and you're at dinner and they bring the check and you put 2 cards down.
Yeah. And I know it's brought some people full happiness. Like I knew a couple that were married and they split everything. They acted like they were like friends in the finance world. Everything else was together, but the finances, they were like best friends. They split everything. And that made them happy. That would not make me happy.
I would make me feel guilty. I would feel like every time I spent money, somebody was like writing it down somewhere and I owed them. Like you don't want to feel in debt to your partner.
It's like Venmo transactions for like dish soap and paper towels.
No.
Can you go in private? Because it's awkward.
Right.
It's awkward to see that.
It's like when you have a best friend, it's like you don't even like, granted massive things you Venmo each other, but like we all have friends where we're like, don't even worry about it. Like, because it's so back and forth.
Yes, that'll happen with us. Like, I got the tab. Like, you just do it and then you just kind of roll with it. But this whole spreadsheet, I think it's a really good recipe for resenting somebody eventually.
Fully.
And money is probably, I don't know, I'm sure top 3 causes of divorce or arguments in marriage.
Yeah.
And it's like if you can agree early on to go all in or maybe all out, like maybe it is one or the other. But I think some sort of combinedness makes you feel not so separate.
Yeah. Okay, what about this though? The other part of the question was, what's the rule on splitting things when you're in a relationship? Like you're in a committed relationship, like Mike and Alanna, they're living together. They've been dating for multiple years. Like, what's that about? Like, how do you figure out who's paying for what?
Big expenses or kind of like day to day?
I feel like both. Like it could be like the paper towels. It could be going out to dinner. It could be.
So rent. He usually pays for dinner. He'll probably laugh if I say this when I say I pick up like smaller tabs like coffee and ice cream and stuff like that. I feel like we might have talked about this once before. He pays way more in rent than I do. It's more proportional to our salaries. I would say he he pays for most things in our relationship, but it is like a trust me system. Like, I think he'll pay for larger things maybe, but I think day to day, like I basically pay for everything within our apartment.
Like
I pay for our groceries and cleaning supplies. Most of the furniture is mine. And that's just like how it worked out. I don't know. Like, so he just bought a condo and he's fully paying for it. Like, I am not in any way paying for the condo.
And so you're going to move in and pay rent or live for free?
I'm paying like the taxes and the bills and the HOA fee. So I'm not paying any of the mortgage, if that makes sense. That's just like how we worked it out because we're not married. My dad actually suggested that to us because my dad's a lawyer.
Also, like, it sounds like it's not even, you don't even like think about like a tally system. Or
no, we're like really good with it because I honestly think it comes down to trust. Like we just like trust each other and we know what each other makes and we know what each other contributes to our like lifestyle and to our living situation. Like I cook everything. I clean the apartment. Like, and that's kind of like the way we make up for it. Like we don't keep tabs on each other at all, really.
That's I think the perfect.
Like even for example, like we're going to a birthday party tomorrow. It's my friend and like I paid for both of our bar fee. It was like $90 each. I didn't even tell him, you know?
You're just like,
It's just, I don't know. Like we're doing kickball again. Like I paid for his membership fee because like my friend was organizing. It's just easier that way. I'm not going to be like, oh, Venmo Mike too. Or tell Mike to Venmo me for his membership. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, we just trust each other.
I like that approach.
And I think like obviously everyone does it different, but that's just like the agreement we never really talked about. It's just like how we fell into it.
What did you and Graham do when you guys were dating?
When you guys were living, well, I guess you never lived together before. So
I was going to say we never lived together. So he picked up dinners. We did the exact same thing. I made less at the time. And so I would do like grocery things. I would bring stuff over. But he would pick up dinner tabs and he paid for the more expensive things. I like that though, because I also felt taken care of.
Yeah.
I think one thing though, as you were talking through that I thought of is with finances and couples, it's really easy to feel like insulted. Like if they do, it's such a sensitive topic because if roles are reversed, his friend's having the birthday party and he pays the 90, then he's like, Venmo request Alanna. And so one of his friend Venmo requests I would feel like untaken care of by him or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think there's like some wherewithal you have to have with your partner of being like, I want to take care of you, knowing you are like, for both of our examples, the guys make more, so they take care of us a little bit more, but we're like, I don't want to take advantage of you. There's a fine line of taking advantage. So you say, I'll pull my weight, but they equally say, I'm happy to do this.
Yeah. Like we actually got, not an argument, but maybe a few weeks ago, he made a comment about how I feel bad saying this. I stopped saying thank you after he takes me out to dinner. And I think it bothered him a little bit.
Oh,
but I think I just didn't, I feel really bad that I did that.
That's so fascinating. So
I know. And he was like, it's not like I'm doing it for the thank you, but
it's nice to be
appreciated.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad.
Yeah, because now that I'm on my own from my parents,
wait, what? What? Something you want to tell us?
No, now that like I never used to thank my parents growing up for dinner, but now when we leave dinner, I'll be like, thank you for the meal. But I haven't thought about that with him.
With Graham?
Yeah.
I know. I felt really bad.
But I don't think you should now that you're married.
Because I don't know who actually paid for it because it's coming out of the same pot. Yeah. I guess that's true. That's interesting though. Like, yeah.
It's like, it just makes me feel good and like appreciated when you say that and like give me a little kiss or something.
Oh,
that's actually really
I just
sweet.
got in the car and was like, all right, let's go home. Like, I felt bad. I felt ungrateful.
Oh, I'm glad he said it though.
Yeah. Because it's definitely a trust thing. It's a give and a take, blah, blah, blah. And like, you don't want there's a fine line, I guess, of feeling taken advantage of. So you just don't want to cross it.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that he said something.
Me too.
I like the way you guys approach, and I hope for my future relationship, it will be like that too.
Shared. The word shared in there somewhere is like beautiful.
Because even if a man does like to pay for more, it does feel really good to like buy your partner something like the coffee, or like maybe it is dinner, or like I don't know, the groceries and cooking them dinner. Like it feels good to take care of people sometimes too.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
cute.
right. Question number 3. Is it okay to complain about your partner's family?
Sort of okay. But you're complaining, thinking it will solve something, and it doesn't. I would say 99% of the time. You're really insulting them because you're attacking in some way their family, and it's not your family. Like, no matter how included in my family Graham is and me and his, like, it feels like family. You're born in your family. So I think it's better to say, if I'm just kind of bitching and nagging about this, the only thing it's doing, it's not making the situation better. It's actually just hurting your partner because they take it personally. I do think there's a way of wording it where you're saying it's productive or you're pointing something out, maybe. But I think it's okay, but I think you have to say it so nicely. And like, this is not a personal attack on you, and I love your family. I'm just pointing out that your brother does do this to me every time we're at the table, and it makes me sad. It's not a reflection of you guys. But I think being like, God, your mom just annoys me, that's attacking their mom. Like, that's not helpful, and that's a line I don't think you should cross. And I just think it would be way kinder if you didn't.
I could not agree more. It's like if I complain about my brother, which I don't, but like if I were to complain about my brother all day long and then you said something, I'd be like, no, he's my brother. I can, but you can't.
Exactly. It's like, no, you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
And then when you run into some family problems, let's say, if you know your partner will go to bat for your family, to you, like Graham will take my family's side every time. And that makes me feel really good, knowing he's not just going to like throw fuel on the fire. He's like, no, you think about this. And I'll do the same for him, and it's like, because you have your own things with your own family, but if your partner dives in on that, like, that's just toxic for you too.
Yeah. Yeah. And also you have plenty of other people in your life that you can complain to.
Yeah. Like if you really call your friend and
yeah, family's for life and they're not going anywhere. So it's like, if you burn that bridge with your partner, they also might not feel comfortable talking to you about family problems because they might think that you're holding over their head or holding it against them.
Yes.
And you don't want them to think that.
And like it's the example of you came to me and you were talking about your brother. And you're like, Colton XYZ. And I'm like, yeah. It's like, what makes you feel like you're not going to want to come to me again and bitch about him because you're going to think you've already tainted my viewpoint. And then you're going to think I don't like your brother. Yeah. But if you come to me and you're like, Colton XYZ, and I'm like, no, listen, this is what he's thinking. And that's really not that bad. And like, he'd probably appreciate it if you did this. The next time you had a Colton problem, you might be like, I will tell her because she's not going to trash him. Like nobody wants a takedown.
Be more of like comfort versus your opinions type of thing.
Yes.
Which, side note, my friend had boy problems the other day. And I said to her, I literally texted her, I go, do you want comfort or solutions?
Oh, nice.
And she like, it worked out so well. She goes, I need a solution right now. And I go, all right, let's get into it.
I did it to you when you were getting on the plane.
And it like made my heart so happy. I was like, wait, it made me understand your problem so much more too, because I realized like you just wanted someone to be there for you.
I just wanted to tell you.
Yeah.
Like I was like, just comfort, by the way. Don't hit me with anything.
I loved it. It helped phenomenally.
This guy commented on that though. Did you, one of the comments on TikTok, and he was like, hear me out. Why don't you verbalize ahead of time what you need? And I'm like, you can't in that scenario.
But that's you saying it, right? Isn't that you?
That is, yeah.
Like he was saying you come and you have a problem and then you present that you want to. It's like sometimes you have to ask.
Yeah.
I know, I was like people these days, but it's the hack.
I think it's going to change the way I like deal with all my relationships. It's probably the most helpful thing I've heard in a long time.
Same.
Thank you.
Well, just scrolled across it and I was like, oh yeah.
Damn.
Okay, next question. Once you're in a committed relationship, is it okay to be friends with your ex? That's another PTSD.
I think after further review on this one, I think the answer is friends. No. Friendly, cordial, appropriate. Yes, because they represent part of who you were, part of your journey today. They were a part of your life. If you're in the same room as them, you don't need to glare at them. I think it's almost a rule that you walk over and you're like, hi, how are you? Because otherwise it's awkward. But do we need to be friends? No. Unless it's been like 10 years and you're just like kind of friends. Like, fine, go to dinner with a big group, but do we need to be friends? I don't think so.
Yeah, like we don't need to be texting each other, but we're all part of the same kickball league. We all go to sorry.
Fuck, dude.
sorry. We all go to a Tuesday night trivia together. Fine, whatever. We'll be cordial, but we don't need to be side texting.
We don't need to. We can be friendly, but friends, we don't need to be friends.
Love.
We're good.
Love. Sorry.
I was thinking about this morning, and I thought of a really good point about it. Okay. So I'm friendly with my ex, obviously, kickball league, whatever. A strict line I have is that I'll never reference anything from our relationship. It's as if he is an entirely new friend I have that I'm just simply not close with. Like if someone references anything in a group that we experienced in our relationship, like a vacation, a movie, a whatever, I'll never be like, haha, like I would never make a comment to him about it. Like it's as if my ex is dead and like this is a new person that I'm like friendly with. If that makes sense.
I like that.
Okay, so if you were all around a table and you were at dinner and there was 20 of you.
Yeah.
And all 18 others got up to go to the bathroom and it was just you and him, would you feel awkward?
Oh my God, that happened once in Nashville.
Did you feel like, oh my God?
Well, it was also a little fresh at this point, but I just said, I laughed in his face and then just like got up and walked out of the restaurant.
I think it would be so awkward.
Yeah.
I think I'd be like, oh my God, help me.
Yeah. Now I think I can handle it for a few minutes, maybe 3 minutes. But yeah, we don't talk like that at all.
None of my exes are. I'm not cordial with any of my exes, so if I ever saw any of them, I would run away.
Like if we were interviewing an ex and he was here and then like you two had to leave and it was just me and him there, I'd be like, I'm going to crawl out of my own skin.
I would then be like, so how's the weather?
Right. That's my dream last night.
There's nothing to talk about. Like
nothing. You can't.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Next question. Do you have to have your significant other's family in your wedding? For example, when you were married, were you required to have Graham's sisters as bridesmaids?
Absolutely. It is a must. You have got to include them in your wedding party. I don't care how close you are with them or not. The person you're marrying, if they have siblings or if they're really close with a cousin, here's the thing too. You don't want to wake up, if you get married on a Saturday, I always said, when you wake up on Sunday, how are you going to feel? You're going to feel kind of like an asshole if you didn't invite them. Always going to feel good if you did.
What if they have like 5 sisters?
Got to.
Because my ex-boyfriend had 4, and we kind of like made a deal where I was like, I'm going to have 2.
Sisters of the 5? The 4?
Yeah.
2 of the 4?
That's crazy.
Because at the time, no, it wasn't bad. At the time, 2 of them were married and 2 of them weren't. So I was going to have like the non-married sisters in the wedding.
No.
I actually think that might be the worst.
No, they knew. It was just a thing. Like we all knew.
Okay, all right. If they're so cool about it, like
so funny.
If they are, if it's one of those things where the sisters are like, don't include me.
Yeah.
And like you already have that rapport with them, I guess that there is a scenario where it's fine. But I would say most of the time you're inviting the sister's brother.
What if you've never met their significant others, or sorry, your significant other's sibling? Because like sometimes you live in different bi-coastal, different countries.
Okay, then I think it's fine to not ask them to be in the wedding, but invite them to something else that's special. Maybe the rehearsal dinner.
Okay.
Extend a little bit, make them feel a little bit more special than all the other regular guests, but they don't have to stand up there with you.
Okay.
If you've never met them.
In an ideal world, I really hope I'm close with my future husband's siblings, but I just feel like being in New York, people live all over the place. I mean, they could be from Europe. They could be from California. Like, you never know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And one thing I saw too, like on our wedding day, like my brother was bawling and Graham's sister was bawling. And it's like, that's like a really emotional day for like, that's your sibling. So it means so much to them too.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm not his sister's siblings. They were still part of my day. And like, it was so special for all of us. Like, then I really felt like when I went to Christmas, like I felt so much closer to them.
Yeah, I guess it's like an amazing bonding experience.
Because truly, the day after your wedding, you wake up and you're like, I'm in that family. Like it's a different feeling. And so it's pretty crazy. And then it's really nice to have included the siblings with that because it's like now we all get to experience it.
I like that. Okay, last question. What extent do you share social calendars with your partner? Example, if one person has or makes plans or is invited to a party, does their partner have to go or be invited?
It's not popular, but gone are the days that you have to make him attend all of your social stuff. Guys don't want to go to the girls' dinner. Like,
No.
Guys don't want to go to half the stuff that we want to go to. I'm way more inclined to attend his stuff than he is ours. Like mine.
Yeah.
Girl, we have more frills. We're more social. And like, I don't want to go to his guys' night. I know that's crazy, but I don't want to go to it. So I think you kind of like read the room and you're like, all right, if it's a bunch of couples, I would like you to come. If it's a bunch of couples on a weekday, he might not be able to go. And then like you go and you're just like, I'm representing. But if it's like a wedding and you're traveling and it's his best friend, it's more fun if you both go. But I'm a little bit more lenient on it. And I definitely provide more options unless I'm not like, this is not mandatory. I'm also fine going to stuff by myself. I prefer him come, but I used to be like, you're coming. And now I'm like, I'll just go.
Yeah.
Like-
I feel like in a relationship, it's important because you want your friends to know that your partner supports you and you guys are a team. But once you're married and you've met these people multiple times and it's just like, you've been together for 5 years, it's like, you don't have to come with me to everything. Like, I'm good.
Yes. And me and my friends were talking about this. The older we get, the more obligations we have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're so much more invested in our job now than we were when we were 22.
Yes.
If your friend was having a bachelorette party when you were 22, like, you'd be there, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But now we're like, okay, life gets in the way. There's more things happening. People are working. Like, Mike's got a crazy schedule. Graham's starting out. It's like, you can't go to the same stuff anymore. So I do think, though, family events are the exception. Like, if Graham can make my family event, I'm like, you need to be there, and
He's
vice
coming.
versa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also think, too, the only time that I would think it'd be important is, like, because like, you have such a big friend group, so I'm thinking about you. Like, let's say you and your friends always get together for game night,
Mm-hmm.
and you and Mike are just dating. Like, I would be like, you have to come with me because I don't want to be the only person without my significant other there. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because I want my friends to know that we support each other.
Well, and I think, too, you have to pull your weight at the beginning.
Yes.
You have to
fully.
show up.
You got to
and-
meet everyone.
Yeah.
And you got to get, I mean, for the first like 3, I mean, it is like you are coming.
Mhm.
And I expected that from all, and you can tell too. Like, I can tell today with my friends that have been with their significant others for multiple years, there's some I know better because they just showed up more.
Yeah.
And that really does pay off in the end. And it is like showing support. But then there were the ones that he would just send her.
Yeah, that's a bad look.
And it is like, you do kind of have to pay your dues to get to that point.
Especially if you're single, a little bit older in life, because your friends become your family.
Yes. And you have to come. Like, and here's the thing too. I don't ever think it's valid to be like, I'm not going to go for nothing. You have to have like a very serious reason to not go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fully. Which, when you're adults, like a lot of those reasons do come up.
They really do. And I think if you fake it once, it bites you in the ass later.
Yeah, but family,
Yeah.
I completely agree. Like family events, you got to suck it up.
You got to go.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend that their partner like doesn't come around at all, really, and it's made like all my other friends not like them because of it.
Why doesn't he come around?
It's weird. It's almost like he doesn't have an interest, it seems, in like becoming a part of her life, and he's just like become part of mine. So it's always like his friends, his whatever. Like, it's hard to get him to integrate like with her. So like it makes everyone feel like, well, like what the fuck is this kind of? I don't know how to explain it. It's weird.
I think at my age, that's probably been one of the biggest red flags I've found with guys.
Yeah, I know
when-
you hate that.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
I've made so much effort to get to know the guy I'm dating's friends and getting them to like me, but they don't put any effort into my friends. Like, that to me is like, I would break up with someone over that. I have ended things with people over that because it's like your friends are your family.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Like,
It's all about respect.
That
all
is
about-
fair.
yes.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you don't care about my life.
Exactly.
So what are we doing here?
It's all about them. It's on their terms. They don't respect you. It's like, it's not a reciprocated relationship.
Yeah. And you got a way better chance if you win the friends over. I mean, because the friends will go to bat for you. Like you have to show up too. If you're meeting a friend group for the first time, you have to show up with like your A game. You're ready to go. Like you're the fun girl. And then the friends are like, no, dude, she was cool. And then when shit hits the fan, they're like, I liked her.
Mm-hmm.
You don't show up ever. They're like, we never met her. I don't really care. So it's like, get there.
Or like when you end things with a guy and their friends still talk to you.
Right? There you go.
That just makes me laugh because I'm like, my friends don't even associate you anymore, but your friends are still out here chatting with me on a regular
Your
basis.
friends are DMing me. What?
They're giving me compliments about my Insta pictures.
So it's you
Damn.
now.
But who won at the end of the day? Me.
Winner.
Ding, 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 a winner.
Those were not facts, by the way. That was just
No, that was just like random tangent.
yeah, random dancing.
It was unrelated to any scenario ever.
Okay, those were the questions.
Oh, fun.
Wonderful.
Should we end with our listener question?
Sure. This week's listener question is, if you are single, seriously dating, or married, how much eye contact should happen during sex?
I hate this question.
I have not stopped thinking about this.
Same. It's like affecting my life.
It's more eye contact when you know them less. That's what
Wait.
gets me.
What?
It's less eye contact the longer you know them.
Really?
Because you can drive blindfolded at that point. It's like you don't need to.
Well, when I have sex with people, usually the lights are off, so I don't have to think about it.
You can see them.
I don't think I'm ever giving anyone eye contact.
I would give it to them if I had you're just getting to know them and it's like the first 3 times. And then the more you get to know them, you're like, I don't need to look at you.
Because you're trying to like learn their face, or
You're just like, what's happening? Like, you're just looking at them, like you're staring in their soul.
are you?
This might not be true, but don't you guys feel like guys give more eye contact than girls? Like, I feel like guys always want to look at you. And I'm like, stop fucking looking at me.
No, I think girls do. I think girls are the eye contactors.
I feel like all these guys always want to like stare at me. And I'm like, I don't want to look at you.
Oh, I think whoever's on bottom is staring.
I mean,
Because they're not moving. If you're on top, you're the more agile, active one, and it's harder to look. But if you're on bottom, I'm sure you're just looking.
Ew.
But the more you get to know them, I think the less I think dating. I think the first like 3 or 4 times you sleep with somebody, I bet you make more eye contact. I just really feel strongly about that.
You know what that thing where it's like awkward silence isn't awkward until you start thinking about it? Now, the next time I have sex, I'm just going to think about that and I'm not going to be able to focus on anything but that. It's going to ruin it for me. I don't know.
I don't think there will be eye contact.
There better not be. Also,
I feel like I looked the whole time.
At him?
Yeah.
Is he looking back?
I don't think so.
So are you on top or bottom? Bottom?
Anywhere.
Bottom.
No, all over.
Oh,
Well, maybe I'm just looking around.
I feel strongly about bottom makes eye contact and the earlier in the phase.
But don't you both have to be looking to make eye contact?
Yes, thank you for poking that hole.
I think my eyes are closed always.
Mine are open.
I usually close mine. I think.
I think mine are open.
I'm trying to think of like last time I had like sober sex because when you're drunk, I don't think it counts. I don't know. I also couldn't tell you the last time it was sober, so I don't know.
My friend, when she lost her virginity, the guy like went down on her and he was looking.
No.
I
He was
hate
like this.
that.
And like we still do this.
Mm-mm.
Or when guys like when you remember like when you
He's
give
looking
head
at
to
her.
guys, they like love when you look at them. And I never do, but did you know? Like guys
I feel like I
love
saved that for the end.
I never want to see your eyes
What do you mean?
when my eyes are closed.
No,
See who you
when
truly are.
you're down there, it's taking you have to focus.
I'm done.
Wait, what is that saying? When my eyes are closed, I
I see you for who you truly are, which is ugly.
ugly.
That's not a saying. That's from She's the Man.
That's like
That quote.
it's like when my eyes are open, I see you for who you truly are, and it's ugly when we're having sex. So I'm gonna keep them closed.
I hate that.
I know. I don't. No. I'm not looking at anyone when we're having sex. The eyes are closed and it's pitch black.
I think you see them. I think that you're looking at them, especially the first few times.
Not when my eyes are closed. I'm
Well,
like,
the eye contact part of it, that's intimacy in the beginning. That's curiosity.
Curiosity.
It's curiosity. It's like connection. It's like,
I haven't been intimate with anyone in a long time. So I don't know.
I have that image in my head.
I'm trying to think about like my long-term relationships if we ever did. There was this one guy that I dated for a while back in Minnesota, and he was like a very like intimate person. Like it wasn't ever just like, it was like making love all the time. And I remember he would try to make eye contact to like just restore intimacy. And I think I was vibing with it at the time, but I don't want to ever do that again.
Eye contact?
Yeah. I don't want it.
It's funny because I truly couldn't tell you. I was gonna investigate.
Do some crowdsourcing, some research.
I was gonna do some research, and I, had the chance the past 2 nights, and I was gonna see what I did because I truly couldn't tell you if my eyes are open, if my eyes are closed, if I'm looking around, if his eyes are open, if he's looking at me. Like I couldn't recall it, and it's something I do often, but I don't know. But I just know early on it does happen.
I don't like that.
What a good question.
Eye contact's hard in general for me. I
also feel like it depends on like you said, like he was like making love, like intimate.
Yeah.
Like that's different than it's like the setting. I don't know.
But don't you know, like eye contact? Is it hard for you guys? Like I can make eye contact with you guys, but people that I don't know very well, it's really hard for me to like make eye contact.
I love eye contact.
I feel like I overthink it. Kind of.
I don't. I feel like people are staring into my soul.
Oh, it's just whenever I shake somebody's hand, I'm just like, I want to look at you and I want to collect your name and I want to write it down in my brain and then I want to make I don't know. I like eye contact.
Jesus Christ. Scary.
Don't meet me.
No, that's scary because like yesterday when we were in this room, like I can't say when someone's like talking directly at me, I get so uncomfortable. I'm just like, stop.
I mean, that was crazy.
That was different. Yeah.
That's not an example.
I can look at you guys all day in the eyes, but like someone I don't know very well, I'm always like, hello, how are you? I don't know. I don't like it.
Okay, and now we're going to kick it off into our interview. This was a wonderful, very beneficial interview, especially if you're in a relationship with Dr. Orna. And we talk all about relationships and counseling, and she provides a lot of great feedback. So I hope you guys enjoy it just as much as we did.
And even if you're single, I thought it was very beneficial and very enlightening.
Before we get into our interview with Dr. Orna, a quick ad from BetterHelp, because this show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process. If you heard this episode, you know that it sure can be, especially because we're always growing and changing. That is probably the theme of this one. Therapy is all about depending on yourself and deepening your self-awareness and the understanding that you have of who you truly are, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk through things. BetterHelp connects you to a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. We are huge proponents of therapy here on the Mean Girl Pod because we're always playing offense and never defense on life and whatever it can throw at you. So if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/meangirl today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/meangirl.
We all know that therapy is the greenest flag of all.
That's right. Okay, you guys, we are joined today by a very special guest that we're so excited about, Dr. Orna Guralnik, who is a clinical psychologist and psychoanalyst. She teaches a course on transgenerational transmission of trauma, sociopolitics, ideology, and psychoanalysis on the disassociation at NYU Postdoctoral Institute for Psychoanalysis, are you not amazed already? She's also completed several seasons of Showtime's documentary series, Couples Therapy, which we've all watched, but you mentioned you're casting for a new season. So should they go to your website? Because people can apply for that.
It is couplestherapydocumentary.com.
Love.
Perfect. Easy peasy.
Might see me. Just kidding.
So what we did is we reached out to our listeners and asked them to submit questions where they have problems in their relationship, their marriage, and we got so many, and we picked an assortment of different ones, like younger marriages, older marriages, people who are just dating. And the first one is about a younger marriage, and Alanna is going to kick us off by reading that scenario.
Okay. This listener wrote,
I got married young, and at the time, our aspirations were the same. The older we got, the more it seems we grow apart. I feel like I am the more ambitious one, and he is really content with where he is. There's not necessarily a problem, but it feels really blah. I don't feel like he pushes me. When do you know the difference in making a marriage work versus wanting a different trajectory for life because you only live once?
That's quite a web of interesting questions that come up with longer relationships. One is, how do you negotiate realizing that you're different? Which is probably, if I would say, what is the key issue that couples present with? That, in my mind, is the key central issue that choosing to live in a couple poses to each individual. How do you live with difference? Question number one. Question number two, what do you do with the fact that over time the quality of the relationship changes, and often there's a switch from the excitement of novelty, of getting to know each other, of new material, of finding who you are in the gaze of your partner. There's a lot of really exciting things that happen early in the relationship, and then it changes because you become more familiar. So the kind of blah word, I mean, many people describe that the transition from early to later phases is the transition from wow to blah. The other question is, what happens when certain kind of dynamics unfold and get created when a couple spends a lot of time together, and certain qualities of a relationship gets distributed between the partners and polarized. So one can become indeed more ambitious while the other can become more in favor of, how about we just enjoy the comforts? And those qualities, originally the people may have not had such an extreme version of those qualities, but the more time they spend together, the more the labor gets distributed more extremely between them. So all of these might be in operation in this like one scenario.
Okay, so establishing how they're different, one, and number two, over time, the quality changes, the excitement could die. And number three, different dynamics unfold and they're distributed differently. And maybe one did become more ambitious and one became less.
Yeah.
So all of those factors, I would say the one that's most interesting to me that I would like to ask you about is like establishing that they are different. What if they weren't different at the beginning and then over time have become different? Is it one of those things where you just communicate and learn to understand the difference because the basis is love, or how does that play out?
That's a really good question, and it might seem sometimes like just like a question of strategy, but it's actually a really, really deep question, because being confronted with the fact that another person that you're attached to, that you care about, that you depend on, is actually really different from you is actually a shocking event. It might unfold and you might discover it very slowly, but there's a shock value to that difference. Because in a certain way, we all, in this like basic narcissistic way, assume that everyone is like us. And repeatedly, we get surprised and confronted with the fact that people are different. They think differently about the world. They need different things. In fact, with the way they see you, they confront you with the fact that you're different to yourself from what you thought. You thought you're familiar to yourself, but when you get fed back information from the outside, you realize there are qualities in yourself that you haven't even known, that you weren't paying attention to. And those are all disturbing, destabilizing messages, both the difference of the other and the difference how different we are to ourselves. We have an unconscious that presents us with constantly new, surprising material about ourselves. So every time difference gets thrown in our direction, we get destabilized and we start fighting with ourselves or fighting with the other person. I don't want it to be different. I want everything to be the same. I want to feel like I'm in control of my world. I want to feel like I know what's going to happen tomorrow, that it's going to happen exactly the way I want it, the way I expected it, the way I was promised. And a struggle begins. How do we change the thing that seems different? How do we keep everything the same so it feels safe and predictable? And in essence, like the work I do with couples and with individuals is help them, rather than respond defensively to that difference and want to kind of conquer it and make it all same, to learn how to grow from that difference, that difference is the kind of thorn that will lead to development and will make sure you don't stagnate as a person.
So, okay, that was awesome. So you said they do want to control it because it is so unfamiliar, and they don't like change because they do want it to be safe and predictable. So you take that, and I guess it's really uncomfortable. Like that would be really uncomfortable in a relationship, I would assume. And so if the end goal is to grow from the difference, would something you would suggest is that both parties absolutely have to show up as themselves, like their true self? Or is there a little give and take that you say she should give him this or vice versa? Or is it fully like you have to be your most authentic self at this time?
Good questions. Good questions. That's a hard one. That's sort of, in a way, like the art of therapy. When do you go in what direction? I would say both and. Because ultimately you want to show up as your true self and your best self and negotiate that. On the other hand, you are also asked to consider who your partner is. What's good timing? What can they tolerate? What does it mean to show up as your true self? I remember years ago when I worked in groups, people would come into group and behave like in very selfish, aggressive ways and claim and completely destabilize the group. But then they would say, wow, I'm just trying to be my true self. Your true self, great. But how about think about your impact on other people as well, so that you're taking that into account in terms of how you present your true self. It's not only about the true self. It's also about really grasping that there are other people around you and taking into account their sensibilities, timing, knowing what you know about their history. So it's both and.
Ooh, their history. Okay, that's good too. Wow.
Well, question with that too, is there a fine line of how much you're supposed to compromise in a relationship? Like how much is this one partner supposed to give versus the other? And what if one is willing to give more than the other? Like, where does that balance play?
Yeah, great questions. I think, first of all, there's all sorts of compromises. There's a way that you could compromise and still remain honest and still remain to some degree loyal to your authentic self. But you can compromise in the sense of taking into account who your partner is and what they need and see how much you can stretch yourself. And then there are compromises that are more false, where you're kind of departing from your authentic self and faking it. And that's kind of a time bomb because that doesn't last. People then develop resentments and rebound. And so if you're going for the honest compromise where you're stretching yourself in favor of the person you love because you see who they are, and you can maintain a connection to your core self, that's growth. That's compromise that will lead to growth as opposed to compromise that will lead to fakeness.
Bring your core self. Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's very interesting.
So the next scenario is a little different. It's about two people who are, I would say, upper 20s, mid 30s. It sounds like, and they're just in a relationship. So do you want to kick us off, Alanna?
Okay. This listener writes, my girlfriend was great for the first 3 years we were dating. I didn't know her or have any mutual friends when we met, but we fell in love fast and hard. After year 3, I started looking at rings. She started manipulating me against my family. She doesn't like my brothers or my sisters and complains about my parents. I slowly see her trying to pull me away from them, but I love her. I try to explain to her my family is important to me, but she puts things in my head like they don't want the best for me. At what point do I draw the line? I love her and she makes me so happy, but not at the expense of my family. But I can't imagine my life without her.
Interesting. We have we're filming a season of the documentary now, and we have one couple that's really struggling with this. So
Interesting.
it will be interesting for the audience eventually to see it in live action. But it's not an unusual issue, right? The issue of how do you deal with your partner's family. And one of the reasons it's not an unusual question, the question of like, the mother-in-law issue and all the tensions that get created around the partner's family. One of the reasons in general that it's such an issue for people is that a marriage, or it doesn't have to be a relationship defined by marriage, but let's say just for simplicity's sake, a marriage means that one is moving their the boundary around their family structure from the family of origin to the new family, whether it's their new spouse, if they decide to have kids, with kids. It's a big change in social structure. So there's a way that one has to some degree, let go of earlier bonds and earlier loyalties and, in a way, ways of thinking, ideologies that marked the family of origin, and shift into a different way of being, which has to do with the new social, political, ideological system that a new family develops. Mm-hmm. And that is painful. It's a difficult negotiation, and it doesn't always work, especially if people come from very different backgrounds. And the backgrounds can be different religious backgrounds, can be different ethnic, race backgrounds, class backgrounds can be huge. So those shifts are difficult. And sometimes the person who is switching from the family of origin to the new couple or the new family is really struggling with like torn loyalties. So as far as one of your listeners, like the way they're phrasing the question, I would start, first of all, moving away from the language of manipulation and the language of kind of will ill. I don't think that language is helpful. I think one can imagine that if a partner is trying to engage you with creating a new boundary around your couplehood, part of what they're doing is they're doing something that could be good for you, which is creating a new boundary, a new social structure, which is your relationship. It's not necessarily a manipulation. It's an attempt to define a new boundary. Now, that partner needs to understand that what that puts you in the middle of is a conflict, an inner conflict between different kinds of loyalties, which is a difficult position to be in. And I think if people start understanding it in that language, that it's not like, a battle of manipulation or somebody trying to do something bad to you, but it's just, it puts you in a position of deep inner conflict. And it takes time, and it takes negotiation, and it takes patience, and ultimately some choice between, okay, where is your main footing right now? Is it in your family of origin or in the new family? And does it have to be always either or? Can there be some kind of new shared space that it's both and? Spend time with both and develop some kind of more extensive family structure that takes into account the differences between people.
That's interesting. So I'm going to say it back to make sure I understood it. So you're saying basically it's like you're trying to define a new boundary, which then can create conflict for one of the parties, because one's trying to define it and the other one has entered into conflict. But using terms like manipulation isn't helpful because that feels spiteful. And of course, it's painful, but it requires patience and a compromise for a new shared space.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
If one partner is trying to pull another partner away from their family of origin, how can that partner communicate to them that they maybe don't want that? Because it kind of sounds like she might be pulling him more from his family, but it doesn't sound like he's doing that to her. So is there a way that they can have a more healthy communication of him wanting both families still, her and his original one?
I think if he doesn't assume she's manipulating, but he gives it a more benign interpretation, which is that she's trying to create a boundary around a new structure, and he's put in a position of torn loyalties, he might be able to speak to her about it in a way that doesn't create conflict, but meaning it doesn't create conflict between them, but he can articulate the inner conflict it puts him through, and they can try to think about it as a team together. It's not, when you really understand why a person is torn between, let's say, loyalties to parents and whatever that history is about, and wanting to create a good thing with their new partner, you can use empathy and compassion to try to find new solutions around it, rather than it become a conflict between the couple.
That's so kind.
Yeah.
What about if, I don't know if it's her or him, I think it's him. What about if he has a good relationship with his family and is trying to communicate this to them and they're like devastated? Is there some language around that that's equally as kind that he could tell them?
Well, okay, then I might want to get it. Then we're out of the generality, and then we might want to get into a little bit more of like what's going on there. Is there something that has to do with one of the parents that is having trouble letting go of their kid and exerting a certain kind of, guilt or shame about betrayal? It's also very culturally dependent. I mean, in typical white American culture, there's like a premium on separation individuation as the right developmental trajectory. But in other cultures, it's not like that. The idea of extended families is much more the norm. So part of it is culturally dependent. So I would have to go case by case and really understand what are the issues that the family of origin is basing their devastation on.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the biggest takeaway for this couple would be not using terms like manipulation, like it is such a kinder thing and she could be doing it out of protection, but he also, or his family could be imposing shame or guilt on him. I mean, I guess that is case by case, but that's fascinating because I tend to go to anger on that. I'm like, but then you made it seem so much sweeter.
Yeah, and it sounds like too maybe his family needs to use or could be using kinder words, because if they're saying manipulation to him, he might then start to feel spiteful towards them, and then that's when her anger comes in. So it sounds like everyone just needs to be a little bit nicer.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that. That was really good.
I do too.
All right, ready for scenario 3?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this scenario is about two individuals who have been married. Was it to say 15 years?
I think so.
So they've been married for a long
Yes.
time. So a little bit of a different one.
I've been married to my husband for 15 years. He makes good money and supports our family. I stay at home with the kids. The older I get and see my kids starting to leave for college, the more I see into the future that I won't have much to do. My kids are where I get my self-worth. On top of this, my husband holds money over my head and is happy giving it to me when I'm with the kids, but I worry when they are gone what I will do. He micromanages me financially because I'm not the one who technically works. We picked this because it kind of ties into like the idea of gender roles, and guess, traditional family unit?
Right. Well, one way that I would think about this is there used to be times when the role of each spouse in a family, in a marriage, was very clear. Doesn't mean that it was necessarily good for any of them, but at least there was clarity. So with traditional gender roles in a marriage, like the man knows his responsibility is to provide financially, and the woman knows her responsibility is to care for the kids, and then later, as everyone grows older, maybe care for the grandchildren, or there are pretty clear ideas of how life is to unfold from beginning to end. Again, not to say that people didn't pay like a huge price for these like traditional gender roles, both men and women. But what they did get was clarity. Nowadays, things are more complex for everyone. When, first of all, economically, there's just so much pressure on the family unit. There's so little welfare support for the family. So most couples have to have two sources of income, right? So things have changed. Like the changes that have come upon like gender roles are not only the feminist revolution, but they're also economic pressures that basically put couples in a complicated position of like, okay, how do we do this? How do we divide roles, especially if there are kids involved? There are a lot of responsibilities. There's the responsibility of bringing in money. There's the responsibility of taking care for the kids, attending to personal growth, attending to the relationship, health. You can't have everyone doing everything. So what do you do? And in the case that you're describing, it sounds like the traditional distribution of labor worked for a while, but there's something looming, which is that there's something about it that is kind of fraying. And in this case, the wife is like, ooh, something is not going to work about this anymore. I've given all of the financial responsibility and control to one person, but now that I'm losing this main purpose of like attending to the kids, what is left here for me? Now, I would assume that those questions were simmering under the surface for a long time, but at some point in time when the kids are moving towards leaving the house, it becomes clear that something about that traditional structure is amiss. Now, it's interesting that often what happens is the couple then turns against each other and they start fighting, unaware of the fact that their fight is not really a personal fight. It's a conflict or a problem that comes with leaning too heavily on these kind of traditional gender roles, not understanding that the problem is systemic, not a problem of this particular wife and husband. And if they can understand that, if they can start thinking about it in that way, thinking about it more systemically, again, they will not be turning against each other, but they will both be sitting outside of that structural issue and thinking, what do we do now? We've relied on this very traditional structure. Now we don't know what to do because the kids are out of the house. So how do we redistribute? What do we want to do?
So I have a question with around that. So it sounds like based off of the scenario, she got her fulfillment mainly from the kids. And it sounds like he gets his fulfillment more so around his job, which that probably will end eventually because when he retires. So in a marriage, if two people are kind of going in different directions of how they feel fulfilled, how can they bring that back when both of those main sources have gone to be more fulfilled within the marriage or within each other, or just maybe other things? Because I feel like if you're married for 15 years, that's a hard habit or routine to change.
Yeah. Well, it can turn into a marital problem, but it's a problem that people face generally, like when they reach a certain end to a certain source of meaning in their life, whether it's kids leaving the house, retirement, illness, a move, war. People face certain moments where whatever worked before doesn't work anymore. And actually, often what happens is a conflict brews between the couple when they don't know how to solve it. They try to solve it by fighting. But I think, first of all, people have to do a deep dive into themselves to really try to face, okay, what do I want my new source of meaning, contentment, self-value, where do I want it to come from? And then bring it to their partner and say, okay, can you help me make that happen? We actually have, we're filming a couple on the show now that are exactly facing that dilemma. And they started off with a lot of conflict between them. The kid was growing and didn't need the mom that much anymore. And there was a lot of conflict brewing between them. But gradually, with the work we're doing, they're realizing, it's actually a lot of questions that they have to turn back into themselves rather than fight each other to find an answer. And suddenly they're arranging each other kind of side by side, shoulder by shoulder. Okay, what do we do now? Rather than fighting instead of going inward.
I like that. Yeah, it's interesting to think about that one as a systemic problem. Like the two of them could solve it together outside looking in.
Yeah.
I think we'll see, I don't know, you would know this, but I would assume this person, if they've been married 15 years, let's call them 45 or 50, they're probably caught right in the middle of that. Like our great grandparents had this very structured way of life and it was clear we're going to have it a lot less. But this generation in the middle kind of sees both sides. And I think they start to realize when the kids leave, they're like, wait, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. I feel like fulfillment in relationships is just huge because even around our age, I feel like the partner who has more in their life that fulfills them always seems to thrive more because they're more independent versus the partner who's more dependent on their partner because that's what fulfills them. I feel like that's like my biggest fear is just being too dependent on my future partner because I don't have enough that fulfills me. And I feel like a lot of people in our generation experience that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Can I ask you, what do you think it is about your generation that will orient certain people to depend on their partner? I mean, what happened with feminism?
Well, okay, so candidly speaking, we're both from the Midwest.
Yeah.
So we are used to, and we deal with this daily, we talk about it all the time, where we're from, this scenario that we just read you is a classic rinse and repeat. You get up here to New York where we're expanding our minds and we're learning different things. So I think it's what you grew up seeing.
Yeah, fully. Yeah, that's definitely from seeing it from my parents, my grandparents, because that's all I knew for 26 years. Now my brain's realizing that there's a different way of life, but it's going to take a while for me to fully wrap my head around it just because that's all I knew for so long.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's a great question. I love that. That was good.
Yeah, that was very helpful. Do we want to do the next scenario?
Yes.
What are some things that couples can do to be proactive in their relationship about stopping arguments before they start?
That's very broad.
It's broad and it's very important. Very important. And there's a lot written about that in the couples world. I can think just generally, I mean, obviously some of it has to do with what each individual brings, right? People with, for example, with a history of trauma, their reason for escalating is different from a person who is, let's say, more entitled or narcissistically loaded, and their reason for escalation would be very different. So, I mean, we can get into that if you want to, but if I had to say something very broad about escalation, one of the things that people learn in couples work are a few things. One is the business of what we call in jargon affect modulation, which basically means you learn to look inward, notice what emotional state are you in, and you know that if there's a certain kind of zone within which arguing and fighting is still productive, but beyond that, it's not productive anymore. It's either a waste of time or destructive. So one of the things we teach people to do is to look inward and see where you're at in terms of like your level of excitation or upset. And if you're going beyond a certain level, either it's time to stop talking, or figure out a way to bring yourself down, with like basic tactics like pay attention to your heart rate, breathing, ground yourself, take a pause, think about the bigger picture, just bring yourself down. So I guess the same way you would do if you're like, I don't know, running and your heart is going crazy. The other area to focus on to prevent escalation is to pay close attention to whether you're in the mode of talking and trying to make your point versus listening and trying to understand what your partner is saying. And really make sure you're engaging more in listening and less in talking. That will immediately completely change the dynamic. So those are the main two things that I would say in general to prevent escalation. And then I would dig into like more specifically what is causing people to escalate.
I have a question. In scenario 1, you mentioned how you thought it could be a strategy problem. And then in scenario 3, you said it's a systemic problem. Do you identify the type of problem first and then do that affect modulation where you look inward, or do you do the reverse?
In terms of how I work with couples?
Or in terms of how we could think to de-escalate a fight? Like, do you say identify what kind of, like this is, which one comes first? Is it?
Affect modulation is always key. Okay. Always. Because first of all, it's actually relatively easy to do once you get the hang of it. And it's always important. So that I would start with, both affect modulation and then kind of figuring out like this knowing when you're listening and when you're talking. I mean, you're actually using different parts of your brain when you do that. So those two things are always important, and I would recommend if people are like trying to do something with what we're saying here, do that. Do those two things. Things are going to look different. And then delving into like more systemic, deeper issues of like, what is really causing the escalation here? Is someone getting triggered by some past event? Are they just entitled and feeling like they just have to have their way? That's hard to treat.
I would think, does the desire to be right usually trump listening?
Yeah, the desire to be right is a strong one. All of us suffer from that. If it's just that, if it's not coming from like deep narcissistic issues, it's okay. People learn how to reflect on that, laugh at that, at their own need to be right. It's not that hard to overcome that.
That's good.
No, I like that.
That's hugely helpful.
Yeah. I'm like taking this all and I'm like, I have so many tools on how to have a better relationship in the future.
Yeah,
Great.
That was so helpful.
Yes.
Orna, I have a question about couples therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Is it hard sometimes to like meet a couple and not immediately be like, oh, he's the problem? Like, as a therapist, do you struggle with that? Like, is it difficult to kind of be like, oh, both of these people are on the same plane, and not let like your human self be like, oh, he sucks?
Most of the time, it's not hard at all because I've been doing this work for so long and I've been seriously trained. And when you think like a couples therapist, you don't even totally see the couple exactly as individuals, but you see them as a unit. And I'm treating the unit. So it's like, if I assume if you're like a medical doctor, you know, you're looking at the liver, but you know that the kidney is what's pulling the toxin out of the liver. So I don't really look at one as independent of the other. But once in a while, and actually in the season that's coming out this winter, you'll see me struggle with one person that was difficult, at least for me. And it took a while for me to find a way to work with them and get to the point that I'm working with a couple as a unit. But that's rare. Most of the time, I just see the couple as a unit, and I'm like seeing how they influenced each other to become what looks like individuals, but it's really a couple's issue, like a gestalt. Sometimes I get tripped into like responding to one person.
Staying unbiased for me would be so difficult.
I know.
Like,
Even watching, I was like,
or bringing your own past experiences into the issue, which makes your brain think like you know everything that's going on. That's why you're an expert, and why you're the therapist and not us. That's why you're you.
Takes a long time.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
No, I feel like you guys like led me down like into like all the meaningful stuff. Thank you for that. Those were fantastic questions.
Of course. No, I feel like our listeners are going to learn so much, so we really appreciate it.
That's cool. We didn't waste any time. We went right into like the heart of the matter.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Before we let you go, do you want to plug where people can find you?
Yeah, so we go through seasons in which we open the door to people who are interested in applying to work with us on the show. It's a really profound and wonderful experience for those who come and work with us. And I'm saying us because it's not just me, it's a whole team of incredible people that work with the couples. So couplestherapydocumentary.com. Come.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Yes. Well, this was so great. We really appreciate it. And we know our audience is going to love all of the scenarios. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the awesome questions.
Of course.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day. All right, AB, do what you do best.
Thank you, Dr. Orna. And like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, which you watch so you can see Jordyn's face. And we love you all. She's smiling. Remove your hand.
No, they saw it in the beginning. They saw it. They're going to see the interview and then me, and they're like, two different girls. I know.
Not the same.
Love you. Bye.